Hi, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Soaring Through Chaos. It's a joy for me to talk about what's happening in our industry, how the world is transforming all around us. And that's why we look at what's beyond the clouds. It's blue skies, right? Blue horizons. And with me is an amazing person I've got to know over the last 5 years, Siddharth Deshmukh. Sid is a traveling professor. I met him when he had just begun to travel with one of Asia's largest universities in the area of outbound communications. And we taught entrepreneurship. He's an amazing entrepreneur. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, Siddharth.
First of all, thank you so much for me being here. And it's been a pleasure to interact with you over these years. And I wish you all the very best for whatever you're up to right now, which I'm sure is as exciting as you told me just before this podcast started. As far as I'm concerned, well, I am the traveling professor, which means it sounds rather sexy, but to be honest, it is me going to various institutes and teaching. I just thought I needed some personal branding handle for myself on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and this one seemed to hit the spot. The idea was to make sure that I travel, I learn, I teach, and then I repeat. So that's the cycle that I go through. Currently, I'm in the UK, so I'm trying to live up to the name, and I'm teaching across a variety of places. Next week I'll be in India, and so on and so forth. So the idea is that I have been an entrepreneur. Yes, I can hardly ever remember that avatar of mine. After which I was an academic. I was an associate dean at MICA, which is a leading university, as you just said. And then I branched out on my own to look at doing my own thing in terms of teaching, in terms of consulting, and in terms of content creation, because I've done my own podcast for over 300 episodes, and generally I'm quite the annoying person on LinkedIn and on Instagram, wherein I'm creating what I think are funny sort of videos and anecdotes. Yeah, so I think that's me in a nutshell. I've also written a couple of books. That was again in an earlier avatar that I do not remember much. But those books come to haunt me once in a while. but then that's about it, really.
And one of them haunts me even today. It's about change management, and
It
we'll
is.
get to that.
Yeah.
So, Sid, you have done 300 successful podcasts. I love them. I watch them whenever I get a chance. Which one is your favorite, and what is your focus at this point?
Oh, okay. So it's always difficult for the creator to pick up one of his creations and say, this is my favorite. Actually, to be honest, I like very few of them, because when you're creating, you just get very annoyed at your creation as soon as the creation is done, because you say, oh, I wish I would have said it that way, or I wish I could have done it differently. But I thought one of the things that has stood the test of time probably is the one on uh, dreaming. So it was about how do you dream, and how do you actually use dreaming to actually inform your professional life, and inform, but not in a woo-woo way, but in a slightly more rigorous and logical manner. So I thought that was pretty useful. But as you know, I cover a lot of subjects: marketing, management, uh, and the rest of it. But I always try to look at as if I'm an outsider. Uh, so any particular episode that is really looking at it from an outsider into an organization, or into a tribe, or into society, is the one which pleases me the most.
Yeah, I like that you're the witness, the outside witness or the inside witness, but somebody who is detached from what you're talking about. So that brings me to the fact that you are very modest about entrepreneurship, but that was during the first wave of the web, right? The first wave of the internet, if you will.
That's right.
You saw the very first mass wave of the internet, call it 1.0 and whatever now we call it 2.0, 3.0. But the transformations have been huge. Tell us where you see, what's your crystal ball saying?
I think I'm going to live to regret this episode within a couple of years, or if not less, lesser time. But what I do feel is that if I look at all of Web 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0, and whatever 4.0 we are in right now, the cycles seem to be getting shorter in terms of innovation and in terms of what we are able to do. So that's one thing that I've noticed. The second thing that I've noticed is um, technology change comes first, and then applications very rapidly happen. I think what I'm becoming very interested in is the sequencing of which applications take off and which don't. So just a couple of years ago, we were all gaga about the metaverse and virtual reality. And today, things like NFTs and, crypto and metaverse have all taken a backseat, and they've been overridden by, chat GPT and Gen AI in general. And I was wondering to myself, is there something that we are missing? Is because it is no good just predicting the future. I think what is critical is predicting the sequencing of the future. I think what will come first and what will come later, because there's no doubt in my mind that the metaverse is going to happen soon enough. So I think from whatever I've observed, the way in which I've seen it move is in the infrastructure layer has been set and improved. Then the application layer in terms of the Airbnbs of the world after and the YouTubes of the world has been set. Now you are looking at engagement, and you're looking at a different kind of interaction that is kind of changing the way in which society is working tremendously. That is what we are seeing right now, the parasocial nature of society and interest-based cohorts coming in. And I think over a period of time, we are going to see an inflection point wherein we are going to change the nature of work the way we see it. Because unless and until we uh, look at work differently in today's day and age, we are going to be nowhere. So I see that as the next inflection point, and any technology that is going to actually help do that, whether the customer side or the supply side, is going to certainly win.
I agree with you. Technology has been the driver along with the platforms that emerge and so on. But there's a human angle, right? It takes time for people to change. When there's the future of work, but is it the chicken and the egg? Is it the technologies that's driving work practices, or are people demanding a certain kind of technology? And you've been a change management guru in the past, and the cycles are getting much shorter now.
Yes.
Where do you see this whole transformation
I
happening?
always ask this question to myself, that would you know ele- electric cars and would electric cars be a thing today if Elon Musk was not around? Now, I don't care about your political view about Elon Musk. Yeah, I'm not talking about that, or the way in which he is as a human being. I'm just wondering, if you take one person out of the equation, where do you see the industry? So is the person driving something? Do you need an exceptional person in terms of, yes, driven person or whatever to drive it, or was it going to happen in any case? And it has found expression through Elon. And that question has kind of confounded me. It has certainly perplexed me, because you can look at it from both ways. One is that, yes, you require somebody with a strong will and somebody with a strong vision to harness whatever there is and push things and all of that. And we've heard the folk tales about heroes, especially where you are in Silicon Valley, who, people like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, they've driven things and stuff like that. And then you have the other view that, okay, things would have still progressed to this stage, whether or not these exceptional human beings were there or not there, because that's how evolution actually goes. So today I don't have an answer to that, but what I'm saying is we need to be open to that possibility.
Yeah, that's amazing. True. I never thought of it as you articulated it. Is it the individual, or is it the collective, or is the collective bringing in the individual? as an individual pushing the collective in a direction. That's an amazing thing to think about. Speaking of which, you have worked in change management,
Yeah.
but are you seeing a transformation that's happening in front of us, or is
Yeah.
this just a passing fad? Generative AI. Remember, NFTs and cryptos are now on the side, and so is the metaverse. Or are you seeing a complete transformation happening? What do you see happening?
First of all, I think let's split the thing. Let's talk of change management a little later. Let's talk of what impact generative AI is happening. So if I look at my field, communications and marketing, I think it's one of those fields that has been tremendously impacted by of what's happening, and we are all in the middle of it. I mean, the entire customer funnel has been now changed to such an extent that we can really consider personalization at scale. Now, mostly we were not able to do that because we were thinking that creativity can be probably restricted to creative people and therefore creative minds and the rest of it. Now we are beginning to understand, and you can see it in real life that people have suddenly started posting huge amounts of stuff on LinkedIn, and you can smell it. You can see, oh, okay, this is Chat GPT in action. It is not something that has come out of the brain of this person who has been silent on LinkedIn for the past 2.5 years that I've known him or her or whatever. So you're now beginning to see a lot of people going beyond their timidity and looking towards creating content because of the capabilities that have been presented. Um, my feeling is that it is changing already. Things are going to get configured tremendously rapidly. We are seeing sea change. In fact, one of the lectures that I'm going to give in MICA just a week from now is how should maybe somebody from MICA, a MICAN, be prepared for this world. By the time they finish, because it's the orientation program, by the time they finish their MBA, things might be completely different. So it is certain, and questions about creativity, questions about logic, questions about we are questioning the first principles, and I think
Very
that
true.
we are in for a very exciting time.
So, speaking of which, there were the select few who used to create content. Now,
Yeah.
everybody has a mic, everybody can create content, and not just Facebook updates, but now they can create a book, they can write stuff, create music, art. Who will be the consumer?
All of us.
But
I,
isn't it going to be more chaotic? Or where do you see it in terms of, is it going to be a meaningful positive impact? Or are we going through are we going through a chaotic phase?
I think that there is certainly a bit of chaos to it, but let's look at the sequencing. And let's look at it from an evolutionary lens. Even before AI came into the picture, you had people being, becoming the creation process becoming more democratized because of social media. So from the aura of the celebrity, you have the era of influencers. So influencers who have been able to, there's so many more people. So the whole aspect of democratization already exists. Now you're moving it one step further, and you're looking at people who are too timid, who are too introverted, who are not natural communicators, natural born communicators like these influencers are, and bringing them to the picture. So it is going to be likely that everyone's going to speak a lot more. I don't know who's going to listen, but I'm sure that that should be sorted out over a period of time. We are going to face an area wherein we are going to get fatigue in terms of the amount of communication that is coming through. We are certainly experiencing that on social media, and we will be experiencing even more of that. But my feeling certainly is that I don't know about you, but I can certainly understand what is AI driven and what is human driven today. Now, over like 3 to 4 years, that is going to reduce, and
True.
I will not be able to understand.
That's true. And if I get a call from you, I have to wonder if it's Siddharth who's speaking or is it
Yeah,
a bot?
yeah,
Right.
absolutely. No, I don't think that we're going to be. Uh, my personal view is I don't think that that is a legitimate danger. I, I
Ah,
I I think the legitimate danger is Siddharth is producing suddenly 100 times that content. But does Siddharth really believe in all the content that he is producing?
Hmm.
Or is it just being done to feed an algorithm?
Wow. Wow.
I think that will be the natural sequence of things. Believability, I'm not so sure that, people always look at the alarmist tendencies. You know,
Hmm.
people get activated, I would say. But I don't think that that is more worrisome. What is worrisome is, do you really believe in what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And what about the jobs? When dishwashers came along and all that, there was a definite disruption in the value of hard work and physical labor. Now, for lack of a better word, this is like intellectual labor, if you will. The mundane stuff in writing, the mundane stuff in summarizing, and all that is kind of reduced, or if not going away. What will happen to employment, careers, entrepreneurship?
Yeah, which is why I said probably a few minutes ago that the nature of work is going to change. And the reason why I'm saying it is that it is no longer restricted to the mundane work being automized. It is about the creative work being automized,
Hmm.
right? So, or automated rather. I would certainly look at the way in which the creative, so up till now, what was the argument? The argument was, oh no, you don't need to worry. You can keep doing the creative stuff, and the mundane stuff, let people maybe in the BPOs in India and whatever do it, and now it's AI who can do it. Now, over a period of time, you're going to say, okay, I can either use Priya or I can use AI. Who am I using for my next campaign?
Wow. Now that's a huge shift. But
Yeah,
like we saw in Brexit, and I'm not asking for a political opinion, we see a lot of protectionism also coming in. We saw
sure.
countries like Italy first banning
Yeah.
outright, generative AI like ChatGPT, and then now they're backpedaling and are trying to figure out the right sense. Do you see that protectionism in terms of jobs, in terms of autonomy, in terms of cultural,
Oh, yeah,
space and all?
there's going to be huge pushback. There's no two ways about it. Like, for example, I read somewhere very recently that just in order to fill a quota for um, putting diverse characters in a film, okay, instead of looking at maybe a black person or a brown person to be part of a film, what they're trying to do is generate those images or those people through artificial intelligence. Now that actually literally means that somebody somewhere is losing out on a job opportunity, right? And the company is doing all the right thing in the eyes of maybe governance or the corporate life. It is going to become extremely dicey, and there are arguments both ways. The argument towards not letting AI take over is certainly has its merits and has a lot of people rooting for it in nationalistic and all those terms. Now, I'm saying that you are you and I are going to certainly, we are optimists. We want AI to work and we want humanity to be benefited by it. But some of us, some of the people who are our friends might call us utopian because we look at things with rose-colored eyes. My feeling over here is that it is good that this is happening, which means that this fight between the pushback and the thing, it is good because we've noticed that when there is no pushback, when there from either side, things actually get even more super chaotic. Here, there are natural checks and balances that are happening, which will lead to a more robust way in which we will interact with each other, and that is never going to be put in unless and until there is some friction.
So we need that creative chaos to be able to sort things out and see which will withstand the test of time and culture and all that.
All of that, yeah, all of that.
Which reminds me, if you had rose-colored glasses and were to
Okay.
start a technology company today, where would you bet on? There's so much going on. There's connectivity, 5G, 6G, infrastructure. the hardware to make chips. Assume that you have all the resources in the world and you can hire anybody. Where would you bet? What area would you bet on?
I would bet on trying to look at the hard problem of consciousness.
Hmm.
I would start from there, because I think that we have come to a place wherein if we can utilize technology and if we can in a meaningful way that allows us to be more aware and more conscious, and see the world not through competitive survival driven mentality, but somewhere wherein we can actually make a step change towards a better world. That requires a different level of consciousness, a different step up in consciousness. And if I am able to get technology to do that, that is amazing. Now you might say, okay, give me an example of something like this, and I can say that the phone, if I'm outsourcing my memory to the phone, I already know how I'm outsourcing some of the memory function to the phone, which means that theoretically I can become more conscious of the present moment. I can become more meditative. I can become, but we are not doing it like that, are we? We are creating more chaos in our brain just because the memory function has been outsourced to the phone. So if there is a thing, if I had to wear rose colored, that was the question. I would look at trying to solve the hard problem of consciousness through the tech that I would be using.
Wow, now that's a huge, huge thing. I'm happy to look at making them emotionally sensitive for now. But yeah, I know what you're getting at.
Yeah,
To have a humanized AI, a humanized way of relating to each other, not
yeah.
just to the machines. Wow, wow. And what are you seeing from the people that work with you? Are they feeling threatened? Are they feeling excited? Because you have hundreds of students around the world and you have thousands of followers around the world. What's the
I'll give you
buzz?
I'll give you very simple examples as to how it's impacting my life.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm looking at doing any assessment of any subject that I'm teaching, and if I get an essay, I have no idea who's written that essay, right? I have no idea how to check for plagiarism. I have no idea how to check for anything. So from my perspective as a professor, I think the essay form is doomed, right? Which is not a bad thing. Which is not a bad thing. So maybe an in-person viva wherein I'm, or a Zoom-based viva wherein I'm actually having a conversation might be an interim step. Of course, you can argue that that will also change, etc. But the thing is, what are you testing becomes quite different. Now, so that's as far as students are concerned. Now, as far as professors are concerned, I think professors and academics really don't know what to do with it, because they are steeped into a culture of academia which is so based upon a particular process, right? That they are finding it really difficult to say, okay, it's all gone now. The lecture format will be gone. The tutorials will be gone. The assessments will be gone. And what are you doing? What are you teaching? So earlier, the professor used to probably think, oh, I'm teaching people how to think and all of that, right? Now I'm questioning that. Like, do we really need you to make people think? Do we need the act of thinking the way in which you're teaching us? So it is going to be quite the chaos. It is going to be quite the chaos. I'm seeing people also having knee-jerk reactions towards saying, no, it is useless. It is not really going to impact my life. And I think it is a big bubble and a big fad, and it is something. And I think that's natural defensiveness. And I think we should expect it, and that's okay too.
True, true. We have a lot of naysayers who say this is a non-event and it's a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
bakwas, as we call it, like, just hype. Um, and there is an element of hype to it.
yeah.
Um, one of the concerns that many people legitimately have raised is, are we going to be more glued to our devices? Because, you've got now the new thing coming from Apple, and like, okay, let's have a human conversation through these intermediary devices. And children already love their, avatars on their video games more than the avatars at home. So the people at home. Where do you see that happening, and in terms of how will it impact our social engagement with each other?
I think what we probably need to very quickly realize that actually the brain that is in our skull is a sort of a virtual interface that allows us to see reality in a particular way to start with. Because if I look at it at a quantum soup level, if I look at it at a submolecular level, I'm going to find it very difficult to differentiate what my experience is going to be. So if I genuinely want to understand how the world outside is, I already have a virtual reality interface that is helping me do that, right? Now, most people are not approaching it like that. They're saying, hey, what I'm saying from the brain is all true. That's all reality. But frankly, that is just maybe not even more than 1% of the reality that we can see. Now we are thinking of putting more layers on a layer that we already have, whether it's from Apple or Facebook or whatever, right? And we are saying that is virtual reality. And I'm saying that the reality that we are living in right now is virtual, is pretty much virtual.
So, in other words, it's Maya. It's
It's
just
Maya, isn't it?
veils
It's
of
Maya.
consciousness.
It is
I
Maya.
think it was one of the great authors, even in the West, talked about veils of consciousness, or
Absolutely.
filters.
So we are
So,
just creating another veil of consciousness.
so then we are farther away from quote unquote reality. And what you're talking about is anything that can help us get closer to the real reality rather than all these layers and veils.
Yeah.
Wow. And what kind of a device will be able to do that? Any idea? Any notion of how will
Um,
we approach the real reality above and beyond all these masks of culture and all that?
So I don't think that this is a solvable problem because we are apes living on a rock which is close to the sun, and we have our limitations beyond a point. Sure, we do produce an Albert Einstein once in a while, but eventually we are apes. My thinking is that how are we going to react to all this technology that we have invented? One of the aspects or one of the offshoots of keeping it real is going to be, and I'm sure you've noticed it too during the pandemic, is that the more digital the world gets, we crave for physical experiences, right? So we want to also have a real physical interaction wherein I'm actually meeting you face to face, having a cup of coffee by Carmel on the Sea or whatever, and we're doing that. And the reason why we are doing that is because we want to connect to what we think is reality. So there is going to be, and we are experiencing. That doesn't mean we're rejecting what is possible, you know, in all the world that we're inhabiting. But there will be more demand for live events. There will be more demand for conferences. There will be more demand for actual in-person interactions as things to be cherished, as things to look forward to. I see that as an offshoot.
That's true. That is such an amazing thing. I'm holding my first AI with chai event, so we
Oh,
can have
lovely.
tea together. Because I
Yes,
realized we are connected far and wide, all over the planet, but we're not sitting together and eating,
isn't it?
breaking bread together. And
As
so,
somebody who is in this whole area
yes,
of
yes,
AI, you're still preferring a physical event.
yes, at least once in a while,
At
because
least,
the
yeah,
isolation is
you
getting
cherish
to
it.
us.
Yeah,
Even without
exactly.
the pandemic, we're now isolated because now we have a team with people in India, people in Mexico, and people in the Bay Area, and people on the East Coast. And I need to meet them, be there, all the senses together.
Yes.
Who are we really? That question comes up. Siddharth, first we had text, and
Yeah.
we are seeing LLM only in text right now, and a little bit of images. But just like the internet, or just like any medium, first there was the text or the word, and then there's the pictures, and then there's the motion of the pictures or images. But that's still, and then the sounds. But that's only audio video. Where do you see the rich media shaping up? And where do you see um, how will we communicate even more creatively using media going forward?
See, what we have to remember is that our choices have become very creative. I always tease my students when I ask them, are you reading lesser today than what you were reading 10 years ago? And they all say yes. And then I say, hey, but you're reading a lot of text, aren't you? So is your reading gone down or has your reading of books gone down? So you're reading, and it's a very conscious choice that the fact that you're reading. We prefer to text rather than speak on phone. Even though we know that audio and everything is all good, most of us prefer to text. So we are making creative choices as consumers first, right? And we are doing them in a way that allows us to utilize our brain. So our prefrontal cortex probably requires logical, rational ways of thinking, which is connected to text. So we have the ability to reflect and maybe curate the way in which our responses are. At the same time, we need the fix that a TikTok video gives us or a YouTube video gives us because that connects to our limbic system. We sometimes we need the visceral excitement of a roller coaster in real life or in maybe a virtual reality thing that we are playing. So I think instead of looking outside towards technology and looking at what the next piece of content is going to be, if we study our brain and the way in which our brain is and the way in which our brain is making either conscious or subconscious choices, we'll be able to kind of understand what content area is missing and how we can shape content further.
Very true. You're bringing one of my nearest heart topic, dearest to my heart, which is neuroscience.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of work has happened through
Yes.
text in the prefrontal area, and
Yeah.
now the limbic is getting reformed through
Yes.
emotional expression in music and sounds and movement and all that. And then there's the visceral. So, are you expecting touch to come on board one of these days, and
I think,
smell and
yeah.
taste?
Yes, certainly. Because it's just the manipulation of molecules eventually. And
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
will be able to do that. I think what is critical is what is already supplied by the world and what is missing.
Yeah.
I think that most people don't think of it like that. Most people think of it like, oh, now we can do touch, amazing. But the fact is that, oh, is touch missing? Now we have a winner because yes, touch is missing in the real world.
Hmm.
Touch,
Hmm.
emotional touch is missing in the real world. So therefore, touch will probably impact more than maybe even sight because we are getting a lot of things that we are saying.
Very true. Very true. In fact, that's the reason we have these meetups, and they're
Hmm.
increasing. Exactly as you're saying, we work from home most of the time, but then
Yes,
we need these periodic meetups without which we feel we are not in touch.
exactly.
So I can't smell if everything is right. Is it all rosy, or is
Yes.
it is there something fishy in it?
Yeah. And when you use the word smell, it actually might be biologically true.
Which is
Bec-
true.
Because the way in which our body chemistry changes when we are fearful or acting out of survival is very different, which must be leading to different hormonal concoctions happening.
It
So
does. It
it
does.
must
From pheromones to endorphins, there
exactly.
are shifts. Yeah. Wow. Wow. And I'm going to change gears a little bit because it's
Okay.
Father's Day coming up.
Oh yeah.
And as a father who has been an amazing father, I see your two daughters doing a blog that has got
No,
tens and thousands of millions.
they have now become very famous on YouTube. They have got over 1 million subscribers on YouTube now.
So tell
Yes.
us about that. How can somebody scale to that extent? And what is your, as a parent, how can you contribute to growth in media, in careers, and so on? Is it even possible for us to do anything as parents?
First of all, as a parent, forget it. I'm just trying to stay out of the way. As a professor, I'm trying to learn from them because I'm lucky enough to have two natural born communicators in the house who are influencers across platforms, which is quite rare. Normally, you have an platform dependent influencer. He's famous. These guys are famous on YouTube and Instagram and on TikTok. So I'm able to see them in action, and I'm learning from them. And what I'm beginning to, so there's a lot to learn from them, but my learning is more about society, and the way in which we require these parasocial relationships, because we have created structures and systems that are creating isolation in the real world. So therefore, we need people who are relatable and yet who are models. When I say models, I don't mean the good-looking models. I mean to say models of how you want to be aspirationally in certain real-world settings. So I think that's what I've seen. And unless and until you are natural at being a leader, because I think being an influencer is nothing but being a leader in a particular parasocial setting, right? I think that unless and until you're a natural leader, you're not going to be able to keep up that act for a long time. And I've seen these kids grow from strength to strength over the past few years. So I have looked upon what is leadership? What is leadership in today's day and age? And I'm exploring both of these questions very deeply.
Yeah. There was a time when the leader was the autocrat, the
Yeah.
patriarch, what have you, and things have changed. In what ways have you seen leadership change in your career, in your lifetime, and where do you see it going so far?
See, up to, even today, we are looking at politicians as leaders when they're actually servants. They're supposed to be servants, isn't it? But we look at them as leaders because we are social beings. So we are wanting to be led somewhere. Now, what we are realizing in society that the leaders in the real world doesn't exist because the real world interactions have reduced. So when we're looking at influences, whether it's PewDiePie or my kids or whoever else, you're looking at people who have that ability to look at you and to make a human connection across millions of miles, whatever your life is, through some common truth for your community. And that is indeed a rare skill, but leadership is now bottom up, and it is agnostic of age, and it is agnostic of autocracy, or the hierarchical thing that we are seeing.
Wow. That's the first time I've heard that leadership is no longer tied to age, even gender or other roles.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? Because that's something you're talking about democratizing leadership and going beyond. This is true inclusion if what you're saying really happens. Don't we still have the digital divide, or are we now going beyond the digital divide?
I think TikTok has done a lot to solve the digital divide, and it was solving it in India before India banned TikTok. I'm not promoting TikTok, so I have nothing against it or for it. But the fact is that people can now create at the drop of a hat, means that it is as democratic as it can be. If you're poor, if you're below the poverty line, you are going to be digitally challenged. Unfortunately, that is the case. That is and we need to have a separate conversation for that. But if you remember when you were in school, when you were with your fellow class students, there was still a monitor, class monitor. There was still a school captain. There was still the guy you went to for the parties. There was still a guy you went to for the study notes. So there was what I call momentary leadership. Yeah, and this momentary leadership is something that has just scaled up because of influencers. Influencers are momentary leaders.
Wow. So basically, you don't need a leader forever or somebody like we have prime ministers or presidents
No, you
for
don't, right? Yeah.
periods of time. So now
Yeah.
this could be minutes, hours. It could be some episodal leadership, if you will.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why does the CEO need to know everything about everything? It's not
And they
right.
can't. So you can have people in certain areas. Hmm. I was looking at them like models. You have models who are, articulating things or in
Yeah.
fashion or music. So, so this kind of leadership, do you think is going to change? It does change human behavior for sure.
Yeah.
But in what way is it fundamentally influencing human behavior on a longer term basis? This
See,
kind of
no, it is
influencing.
changing because Shankar, you and I are going to be out of it, right? We are going to be replaced by Gen Z and then Gen Alpha and all of that. Millennials are maybe even out of the older millennials are out of it. So clearly they are going to have a different value system than us. So they're going to value leadership of a different kind than the kind of leadership we have valued.
Do you think the role of a teacher is going to change fundamentally?
Yeah.
We talked about imparting knowledge, giving information, that's kind of fading away. But
Yeah.
what do you see will be what will be a good teacher going forward if they're not
I
going
think
to be imparting knowledge and stuff?
I think a good teacher has to be a great content creator to start with, because actually a teacher is creating content, and there is no automatic respect for somebody who's not creating great content, right? The second thing that a teacher should have the ability to is to energize, just to give that energy and that inspiration to students, but in a meaningful way, not in a hokey way, but because you have enough domain expertise, but your actual ability is to trigger that energy in and that passion in. And we have heard of it, but students, when they encounter a teacher in class, they're still encountering a knowledge expert who's saying, oh, this is the theory, this is the framework, this is, respect me because I have a lot of knowledge.
And that's getting completely democratized. People can do Google searches and now they
Yeah.
can generate content. Well, I am also going to end this on an optimistic note.
Sure.
I'm gung ho like you are, and still have a lot of question marks in my head. That's why I talk to people like you, and
No,
I
trust me,
learn every
nobody
time.
nobody has the answer. We're all there, isn't it?
And anybody out there who has different opinions, please come forward. We don't want to hoot our own, we don't want to keep singing the same song over and over again that the world is changing and it's all good. We know that even when Alfred Nobel came up with the dynamite, he thought it was going to be used for building bridges and tunnels and was used in war. And that's why we
True.
have the Nobel Prize today. So, what kind of dynamites are there in front of us? How is the
We
world
didn't.
changing?
Yeah.
So thank you,
Absolutely.
Sid, for all your sharing of wisdom. As
Lovely.
always, I like the fact that you travel around the world and bring nuggets from around the world to create this confluence. And please come forward and talk to me. I would love to hear from you. And let's not make this a monologue. Let's make this a dialogue, a triad where we all participate.
Lovely. More power to you, Shankar. More power to
Thank,
you.
thank you, Sid.